Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pastor Jardula here. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for watching all our election coverage. I hope you all checked out Fiorella's coverage in Peru. It was some great stuff. The election hasn't been officially called yet. It's very, very close. We're waiting to see what happens, and we're getting up to the minute responses back from Fiorella and updates to see what's going to go on. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't seen, I just got back from Georgia. I talked to a couple ladies over there. We have those videos in our queue. Please check them out. The two witnesses that actually signed affidavits and talked about what they experienced during the election and the recount process in Georgia. Some just eye-opening stuff. We have to learn our elections to understand what's going on. So this is part of the process. It's not just about saying Trump or Biden. To me, it's more about looking at the framework and the structure of our elections. So we have to constantly be educating ourselves on what happens and what goes on. I know a ton about elections, and there was still stuff I learned when I went to Georgia as far as making test ballots, and those test ballots can be counted, and they can be made on the spot. So something to pay attention to. Please go check out those elections. So I have a guest today. You might not know this gentleman. He might not be in our realm. He's considered, I guess, a conservative of sorts, a Trump supporter. I was on a show with him last week with our friend Uncle Ronnie in Arizona. Josh Bernstein's with us today. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing fantastic. Great to be on the program with you.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. I just, it's been interesting since this whole election process has happened. I've been talking to a lot of progressives, but also a lot of conservatives too as well, a lot of Trump supporters like yourself. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do and also where we have some commonalities, I think, is the fact that we hate censorship. I know you hate censorship. Give our audience a little rundown about what's going on.
Absolutely. Yes. In October of 2020, I was exposing the voter fraud that was going to be taking place on November 3rd. I was doing a video in which I was showing the Kentucky race with Brashear and Bevin, and showing votes being switched live on national television on CNN. And it was Russell Ramsland and Allied Security Services. And so after that video aired, and it probably had like 70, 80,000 views within, probably 7 or 8 hours, I got a notice saying that I had a community strike. So from there, they gave me one community strike. Now, I've been demonetized on YouTube for over 4 years because of my content. So what happened after that was I got into a thing with Ilhan Omar, or actually, let's call her by her real name, Ilhan Noor Saeed Elmi. And the official word on Ilhan Omar is that she escaped war-torn Somalia to come to America for a better life. Well, that is absolute garbage. She was war-torn Somalia. Her father was the former propaganda minister for Saeed Bayar, who was the former dictator in Somalia. The bottom line is, if they didn't leave Somalia, they would have been executed by the incoming government. So that's the true story on her. She lied on her N-400 immigration forms. She lied, and her father, when they brought her over, they used the Omar name, which was a popular, established, prestigious name in Somali, in Mogadishu, in a compound. They either paid for it or borrowed it or stole it or took it, whatever. And they lied and said that they had no affiliation with any communist or totalitarian regimes. Well, that was a complete lie. So in that show, it was about the ballot harvesting operation that was going on in Little Mogadishu, which of course is St. Paul, Minnesota. And so I was covering that, and it was my good buddy, James O'Keefe, who I've had on my show before. And they took a 24-minute video and they snipped 41 seconds of it. And in that video, I say all of her crimes, as far as being a spy, being close to terrorists with care, marriage fraud, immigration fraud, all of the different things that I believe that she was guilty of. And I said that she should be arrested, she should be tried, and if convicted, she'd be sentenced to jail for the rest of her life, or better yet, executed. Well, it was the big E word that they had a problem with. And of course, the headlines ran, Josh Bernstein calls for the execution of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, which of course I didn't say, because if I did, the FBI would have been knocking on my door. So they obviously took that out of context. But here's what's happening after that. YouTube doesn't even give me another strike. They just completely remove me. Then Patreon removes me. I never even put the video up on Patreon. They remove me. Roku Television removes me. Amazon Prime cuts me off. Facebook removes me. Twitter removes me. So within a 24 to 48 hour period, I was completely gone from social media. Now, this happened again, like I said, in October of 2020. And it was a blessing in disguise because it gave me about a 3 to 4 month head start before everybody else was taken down after January 6th. So I was able to reestablish myself somewhat. And I now have my own website, which is joshbernsteinuncensored.com. And anyone can go there. You can subscribe to the website, which supports me, but also it gets you news that you're not going to get any other place. I'm not a conservative news echo chamber. I'm an investigative journalist, and I cover things that would be immediately banned from social media. So the good part is that when they did ban me, they have now completely liberated me to cover anything and everything that I want to cover. So folks, find out why I get 10,000 attacks a week and why I need 4 levels of security and a full-time IT guy to keep the website going at joshbernsteinuncensored.com.
Wow. That's an opening. And it's kind of crazy, too, because, you know, I don't know a lot about the Ilhan Omar story you had talked about right over there. I'm not a big fan of her. Actually, in first, when we were all aboard, a lot of us progressives with some of these progressives coming in, she was my favorite of the squad. Now I have since seen what has happened, and I can't stand the squad. All of them, I think, are just terrible. They don't represent the left properly. I mean, I don't think anybody represents the left. I supported Tulsi Gabbard myself, and I always kind of point that out so everybody knows what type of leftist I am. But let me ask you a question. What reasons did they give you for taking you down? Did they just say you just went against the community guidelines? Were you contacted directly by YouTube? Because I'm wondering what my audience thinks right now, see if they're kind of curious to see if, like, hey, this was worthy of what Josh said to be taken down, or at least warned. Or it was completely BS. Whether you believe in the information or not, Josh should have the right to go on and say those things and shouldn't be censored. Because that's a really big problem we have right now with leftists. They've forgotten about civil liberties, and they've allowed censorship to come creeping through the door. And censorship to me is it's the worst form of fascism. So tell us about,
in my opinion, generically speaking, not all, believe in freedom of speech if it's speech that they believe in. So basically what happened with Ilhan was that they snipped it, they cut it, and Right Wing Watch, which is another organization for people for the un-American way, and they then took a clip of it, again, like I said, about 41 seconds of it, and they played it and blasted it all over the place, all over social media. Well, Ilhan Omar herself retweeted to her 4 million plus followers, and then Geraldo Rivera got involved. He retweeted it as well, and with a little message to the FBI. And then what happened was it was an all-out snowflake assault against me and all of my platforms. And they basically contacted Roku support, YouTube support, Patreon support, Amazon, all of them basically. And of course, they caved because they have no balls and they don't believe in freedom of speech, unless, of course, it's left-wing ideology speech. And so they caved and they threw me off of everything. But like I said, it's kind of a blessing in disguise because when they did it, at least I had an opportunity to kind of regrow some of my audience. You know, the good thing is that being a public figure and already pretty well known with millions upon millions of views, a lot of people could find me. The problem now is it's harder to find me because I'm so limited on social media. So I'm doing shows like yours and many others to try to reach people in a more organic way, if you will, to kind of grow back my audience. So I had a very, very large audience, and now I'm still trying to find my audience and bring them back to my website.
Do you think, though, that, and first of all, I disagree with the fact that it's left-wing ideology. It's establishment ideology. I think there's a conflation that the left wing is represented by the establishment left speaking points. We're not. So, I mean, you know, what Kamala Harris has to say to me is not what a true leftist would say. You know what I'm saying? And we'll discuss these things as we go along. But let's talk about one point of view where somebody would say, well, Josh, what if somebody were to say to you, well, maybe you're being a little bit insensitive and that could lead towards anger or hate towards Muslims if we kind of speak that narrative or that rhetoric. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I would say that it's not Christians and Jews that are strapping bombs on their waist and running into supermarkets and screaming Allah Akbar. That'd be number one. Number two, I don't think it's insensitivity. I think it's more of the fact of pointing out from a standpoint of immigration as national security and pointing out people that are doing the wrong thing. And now they're members of Congress on the Foreign Intelligence Committee, talking to our allies. So I've called out Ilhan Noor Saeed Elmi for a very long time. And the fact is, she's not who she says she is. I believe that she is a terrorist plant in our Congress and in the House of Representatives. I believe she needs to be removed from office along with Rashida Tlaib and, of course, AOC, or as I like to call her, Dumbelina, and some of the rest of these idiots. You know, you've got the Presley in Massachusetts, and now you have Cori Bush, who has now come into the fray. She's the newest member of the squad. These people are not American in their ideology towards the flag, towards our Constitution, to rule and order and everything else. And I will call them out and will continue to call them out when they side with our enemies and against our allies. I think it's disgusting.
You know, I think you have every right to say that. I disagree with a lot of that, what you said right there, as far as what, you know, our flag and what it means to be American. I disagree, obviously, but I think you have the right to say those things, and you shouldn't be taken down. So I just want to point that out, because I don't want to stay too long on this particular subject, because we can probably go back and forth every day. And then we'll get into, when we get to the foreign policy part, who our enemies, our allies are, whatnot, because I see more of a globalist agenda by non-nation states, by individuals, you know what I'm saying? And I think we do not yet know some of the roles which some of these people are playing in the background, and a lot of the vaccine and the COVID situation has stuck its ugly head out. We'll talk a little bit about that, too, down the road. I just want to point out, I disagree with you on certain things, but I think you have the right to say those things, Josh, as long as you're not
disagree.
As long as you're not encouraging violence and whatnot towards these people, then that's fine, because I have different discrepancies when it comes to Cori Bush and AOC and whatnot. I think they're complete phonies. I don't think they're enemies, but when it comes to our elections, who the hell even knows who won anyways?
Right,
and got anybody in? Who knows what? Exactly. And that's the bigger picture. So I think we have what I have to say, what you have to say, and we meet somewhere in between. But do you have anything to say about that before we get to elections?
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think that, you know, with everything that's gone on in 2020 and even in 2018 and 2016 before that, I think there's been a lot of voter fraud. I think it's been going on for many, many, many years.
I think it's election fraud. More election fraud. I want to point that out. I think voter fraud is the individual going to try to do something. What you exposed on TV was election fraud. You know what I'm saying? It was the bigger entity trying to steal the election, not the voter individuals. I think voter fraud is more about a voter committing voter fraud, an individual. Election
fraud and election fraud, I think, go hand in hand. I mean, you have votes in order to create election fraud. And if you have election fraud, you need votes. So I think they kind of go hand in hand.
But you know why I don't think that way? Because you don't have voters creating a lot of these ballots. You have individuals creating fake voters. That's why I just think it's important to point out election fraud.
But like I said, I think we're splitting hairs there.
I know, I hear you and stuff. I just wanted to point that out. But let's get into this. What do you think was the most damning piece of evidence that you saw in the November election that made you think that this wasn't a fair race? And I want the specific, not the macro. I know you pointed out something you said, I believe was in, what state was on TV?
Well, I mean, if you look at the opening of my show, it literally says leftist radicals stole the election. And there's a video of Ruby Freeman and her daughter and the other guys pulling the suitcases out. So if you're asking me what one visual aspect of the entire election can be summed up, I would say Fulton County. And I would say, you know, the hood rats, let's call them what they are, that stole the election by pulling the suitcases out in the middle of the night and sending Republican observers home. So if you're asking for one specific detail, that would be the number one thing in my book.
Well, you know, obviously I wouldn't call them hood rats, but I get what you're saying. I don't care who it is. It was individuals who did it. But the most important thing to point out, and this is very important, Josh, is that it's illegal to have those ballots under the table with a cloth out. That's illegal. Those ballots got to be in plain sight the whole time. And when I saw that, I was like, holy cow. And I was just in Fulton County right now, where it's a difference of less than 12,000 votes. So that was illegal for them to pull that out. So I think that's a great thing that you pointed out. Was there anything else that really struck you with this election that you saw other than those particular ballots?
You would have, okay, this is more a generic, but you would have to say to yourself that an 80-year-old or 79-year-old with stage 3 dementia that never left his basement, that stayed in, that did a lid every single day, that couldn't draw a crowd, that had little circles around people, and it was all the press, you'd have to say to yourself that this person who's white and has a history of racism against black people won an election over the first black president in Fulton County, Maricopa County, Wayne County, Clark County, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and I don't know how many other counties that Obama won in 2012 and 2008, that apparently Biden lost all the other counties, but won those counties overwhelmingly over the first black president. And you're going to sit here and tell me that President Trump, who had 35, 40,000 people on a Tuesday afternoon in Maine, somehow lost? It's absolutely insane. They used COVID as a cover to steal the election. Rahm Emanuel once famously said, never let a good crisis go to waste. Well, guess what? They found that crisis, and they've even admitted it. That's the thing. The Time magazine article practically admits what they did, okay? And remember, this never would have happened without the help of Republicans. Democrats could have never have done this on their own. It was Republicans. It was the establishment, Liz Cheney, Mutt Romney types that were helping, and they must have paid off the judges to not take the cases. This was a complete criminal conspiracy involving, of course, the CCP, which basically funded the entire operation. And I think you have the entire thing. They said, look, we can't beat Trump. We cannot compete with him in the arena of ideas. There's too many supporters out there. So you know what we're going to do? We're just going to steal it, and then we're going to deal with the consequences later. That's what happened, and we're going to prove that that has happened.
See, I don't agree with the CCP thing. Like everything else you were saying, you were singing some sweet music there when you were talking about the counties that were won and lost. When you look at the math of elections, that really is some alarming thing. It hits up red flags the way you say, whoa, you're losing these counties over here. I mean, I think he won 1/3 of the counties that Obama won last, when he won, and yet he still won highly dense in these areas where ballots could appear and be clustered.
There's no way he had 81 million votes. But President Trump might have had 81 million, or maybe even 85 to 90 million when you take the ones that they stole from him away. So, and they say he had 74 or 75 million. That's not true. On election night, they said that he was at 425 to 110. That was what it was after midnight on election night. He had 425 electoral votes to 110 for Dementia Joe.
Yeah, Zombie Joe in his
Pedo Joe, basement. Whatever you want to call him.
But
and heels up headboard Harris.
Yeah, I don't think we have solid evidence that the CCP was really even involved.
I think we do.
To what extent?
I think we do. I think that they put in hundreds of thousands of fake ballots that were being shipped in from China. There's reports of that. There's video evidence of that. The fact that they bought in and they funded Dominion at the last minute, the last few months, they put millions upon millions of dollars in Dominion stock at the very end. So absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And if
I'm going to agree to disagree.
A real forensic deep dive, we would find that out.
I'm going to agree to disagree. Right now, we still haven't gotten ballots with bamboo in it. And why would we have to go get ballots with bamboo? We can get them right down the street. You know what I'm saying?
They were making them. They were also making them right there at some of these facilities.
Exactly. That's what we learned right here in Georgia, is that they can make them right there. So I will agree on a lot of the things that you talked about right there, and the Fulton County pulling it right out from underneath the tables. It's illegal to have those under the table, especially with a skirt over them. They have to be in plain sight. So we'll agree there, and we'll disagree on the China thing, but we will continue to talk about these things because I think you cannot erase the actual evidence that we have there, which is enough evidence to say we have to change things. But what area, and you can give me two if you want, but if you got one in specific, if you were in charge of the elections, what would be the first thing you would fix? Because I want to talk about, when we start talking about Dominion, we start talking about ES&S, I can tell you the first thing I would fix is I would eliminate all proprietary software from our elections, period. It would either be open source or back to hand counting audits in public.
Here's where the controversy is going to come in, and here's where the hate mail is going to come flowing. First and foremost, I would raise the voting age to a minimum of 21. I'd like to see 25, to be quite honest. but we'll go with 21.
Okay.
I would also like to see a complete elimination of mail-in and absentee ballots, except for the military or the indefinitely confirmed, the real indefinitely confirmed, not everybody in Wisconsin, like the judge allowed to happen. I would also have 1 day to vote. If you look at a state like North Carolina, they ran 60 days, 2 months into early voting when they opened up. I believe they were the first state, 2 months to be able to vote. That is absolutely ridiculous. The longer you have your vote out there, the more likely that vote is going to be messed with, compromised, or not counted at all. So I would like to go back to hanging chads, pimple chads, pregnant chads, whatever you want to call them, and get rid of these machines 100%. Let's go back to hand paper ballots and, of course, voter ID in all 50 states, or if you're Barack Obama, all 57 states, but I digress. So those are some of the changes that I would like to personally see myself. And I'll even go a step further. I want to see you have skin in the game. Now, I'm not saying that we got to go back to you being a landowner or anything like that, but how about proof of income? How about a recent paycheck stub? How about if you're retired, maybe an awards letter or a pension letter showing that you have money and that you have the ability to be able to, give something back to society? If you're on welfare and you've been on it for a certain amount of time, I'm not talking about people that have a rough patch in their life and, they need a little help. I'm not talking about that. But if you've been on it for 3, 4, 5 years or whatever, and you've been doing that consistently, why should you then have the right to vote? Now, I know that's a controversial statement, but hey, you should have some skin in the game because if you don't, you're probably going to vote for the people that are going to continue to give you handouts.
Well, it's funny because I said the other day, would you want to have skin in the game for the workers? I believe that I've seen a lot of the workers that do these things, and there's a lot of people who are interested in whatnot, but I'm going to have to disagree with a lot of things over there too as well. I believe certainly if you're 18 years old, first of all, if you're 18 years old, I believe you should be able to drink, because if you're able to go off and die in our wars, you should be able to go ahead and have a drink, and therefore you should be able to vote. And I believe that it should be, once again, as far as ID. Yes, I feel strongly about ID, having an ID when you're there and stuff like that, but I'm definitely strong on having an ID on absentee ballots, whether it be a driver's license number or Social Security. And a lot of these bills are talking about IDs there. As far as being like
Georgia just passed it, by the way,
on welfare and all that stuff, I don't think that should matter whatsoever. Having some skin in the game, I think we'll probably disagree. As long as you're a citizen here, you should be able to vote. You're 18, that's fine. I just believe we need to change the technicalities of our elections, not so much as far as like who can vote, when they can vote, how they can vote, whatnot. And the fact that we do have so many people on welfare and so many people are poor, I think that talks to a different issue of why that's happening over here in the good old U.S. of A. And I think that's something we can go on to discuss. But I agree to disagree. However, the one point I want to kind of stay on is the mail-in and the absentee ballot situation, because that is very important. I don't believe that everybody on the voter roll should get a absentee ballot unless they request it and request it in due time. And I would also agree that it should be, for situations for handicap, for military, whatnot. But in order to do that, Josh, and like you said, that 1 day, first of all, I'll settle for 4 days, right? Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. That's me. I don't want to go weeks out, whatnot. I can believe that we can have the chain of custody, secured for 4 whole days, so there's no excuses. But also, too, as well, you want to talk about that?
Well, I say 1 day because we've done it for 1 day for many, 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 many years. And there was never an issue. There was never a problem. People that work, you can go before work. You can go on your lunch break. You can get out a little early and you can go after work. I always say this: if you cannot get there on election day, then it wasn't important enough for you. And to be quite frank, I don't want you to vote.
Look,
and I'll say it. I have no problem saying it. That's the thing.
But here's the thing. We're experiencing long lines, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. This is when I was on the show with you and Sonny Borelli, and I said, I disagree. You cannot tell me. Fiorella's in Peru right now covering that election. You know how long the average time to vote is? 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That's not like that in America. We have to fix that. So if we want to have 1 day, 4 days, a week, whatever we want to do, we have to fix the election system itself first. And we have a lot of confusion and congestion in there because we have all these contractors in there with these different machines, and they're trying to do this and trying to do that. Hey, man, we should be able to get through and vote. So if you want to have 1 day to vote, I think you need to have a law that you have to get in and out there in 10 minutes to vote or something of that magnitude.
Get rid of the machines is a big part of it.
What's that?
Get rid of the machines is a big part of it. Have smaller precincts and have more polling stations open. Absolutely. I would agree with you on that.
Okay. All right. So there we agree on that. We don't agree on a lot of things, but we do agree on that. My third question was kind of, we already went over to it, like, who do you think was behind the foul play in November? But let's talk about that. Let's digress back to that because I disagree completely that it was China. You know what I'm saying? I don't like the fact that a lot of conservatives and I think a lot of patriots or Trumpers or whatever you guys like to you like to be called a patriot. Is that what you like to be called?
An independent conservative.
All right, independent conservatives, patriots, real conservatives, fake conservatives, whatever you want to say.
I'm definitely America First nationalist.
Okay,
doesn't mean I'm a white nationalist or a racist or anything like that. It just means that I believe in America First policies. Absolutely. Just like if you're from Peru or if you're from Brazil or you're from China, you should be a China first, or Peru first or Brazil first or Australia first or New Zealand first, whatever it is. You should always have pride in your own country, and you'd always want to put your country out there and do whatever you can to make your country as good as possible before you even worry about another country out there.
Well,
so
yeah,
that's
I hear
what
you,
America
but,
First means. It's not a racist
I think
thing.
I know. I think it just leads the simple mind to be too closed-minded sometimes. I mean, I understand when you say it, where you're coming from. And
nationalism is much better than globalism.
Yeah, well, I agree some way because the globalism got out of hand because, like, I'm a life first person. You know what I'm saying? Humans first and life and be whatever the case may be.
So you're pro-life?
Yeah. What's that?
You're pro-life?
No.
You said you're life first. So.
No, but I'm not pro-life. I mean, I believe in life. When obviously my stance has changed a little bit. I still believe it's a woman's right to choose up to a certain time. So, I mean, that's a tricky one. That's a tough one, too, as well, because I understand your point of view, too, as well. I don't demonize people who think that it's a living human being, that it should be killed. So it's very much, I'm 11 months a vegan, so now it's kind of changing a little bit for me once again. But my solutions, and we can talk about that, would probably be a little bit different than yours, because when we talk about foreign policy, we're not going to talk about surface level stuff. If we want to have less babies being aborted here, then we have to talk about the problems of why we have so many unwanted born babies. You know what I'm saying? Why people are led to that. I believe it's economy, education, those sort of things. If you have a strong economy, you're going to have a lot less of that happening. That's just my personal opinion, if you look at the actual reasons why. But
here, I may shock you here. I'm 100% pro-choice because I'm 100% pro-life. See, I actually believe in giving the choice to the unborn child. And it's interesting that when people say they're pro-choice, they believe in the choice of the mother. But what about the choice of that child? Don't you think that child would have chosen the right to want to live? So I always say, if you're pro-choice, you're actually pro-life because you believe in the choice of your unborn child. It kind of totally screws with the heads of liberals, which is why I love to do that. But go on.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too far into this topic right now, too, as well, because bringing a baby into a situation where it might not be very suitable for them and putting them through a miserable hell, I hear what you're saying. But that's a discussion for another day.
Responsibility, there's adoption, there's a bunch of different things.
I understand right now.
Kill the child.
But, everybody says that thing, and there's more children now in foster care is out there without anybody. There's 750,000 homeless people.
Moral compass. Hang on. Take the moral compass out of this argument for a minute. Let's look at this from a purely national security standpoint. If we have murdered close to 70 million potential future individuals, men, women, whatever, great leaders, great military leaders, great teachers, great mathematicians, great scientists, great inventors, great, musicians, whatever, it's a national security issue. Because think about it this way. If those that are enemies of the United States are having more children and considerably more children, like, for instance, the Muslim world are having 2.5 to 2.8 babies per household. If you look at Europe, they're now at what? I think 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 birth replacement rate. So America, thankfully, was at least at 1.8%. And one of the reasons for that, believe it or not, were due to the illegal immigrants that were coming into the country, because a lot of them were having more children. If we were tougher on the borders, we would be closer to that 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 birth replacement rate. But because we have killed so many future citizens, we have now put ourselves in a national security deficit because we don't have as many people to compete. So you can look at abortion in a lot of different ways. You can look at the moral compass of it, of course, but you can look at it from a national security standpoint. We shouldn't be killing these people because we need to replace the generations that are dying off.
I don't even know where that conversation is. Josh, I'm not there with you on that. That's blowing my mind right now to even think about that we have to produce more. I mean, we're all one humans, one planet. What's going on here? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I guess that my thought process of where we need to go as a species on this planet is different. And you do have a nationalistic kind of approach to it.
You're a little more kumbaya than I am.
What's that?
That way. You're a little more kumbaya than I am. Let's just put it that way.
Well, if I am a little bit more I have hope. You know what I'm saying? What not? You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
I mean, we're all humans. We have one planet. You know what I'm saying? We have to live here. Things are going to be different. And I think a lot of people, I think that mentality is kind of a little bit out of the, it's a little bit too far in the past. We've had the Industrial Revolution. We've had the technological boom. There's a lot of things we have to worry about here, whatnot. And one day we have to all come together. That's why I hope that, when maybe some people from outer space come attack us.
Intolerant people that don't want other people to live because they have a different ideological or religious belief system.
That's a small minority of that. That's a small amount of people.
Okay.
Most Muslim people don't walk around thinking that way.
You open that up, I'm gonna hit it out of the park. There's 1.8 billion Muslims, I believe, in the world, right? Now, your comment is, well, it's a small minority of people that are radicalized. Okay, fine. Let's say that 20 to 25% of all the Muslims in the world are radicalized. Fair enough. That's still 400 million radicalized Muslims around the world. There's not even 332 million people in the United States of America. So that
all right, what radicalizes them, Josh?
All of them?
What radicalizes
really
them?
Huh?
What radicalizes them?
I would assume the Quran, their religious beliefs.
No,
lots of different things.
Well, I think that's the wrong assumption. I can tell you what radicalizes them quicker than anything. It's called American bombs. American foreign policy radicalizes these Muslims more than anything else. The ones that and you know who else radicalizes them? The CIA, the Pentagon, who's paying them. Right? Who's paying these jihadists? The Mujahideen is the Mujahideen because of American foreign policy, because of Operation Mongoose. So we can't forget about that. So if we want to stop radicalizing people, maybe we should stop dropping bombs and putting our nose into situations. That's where I hope the nationalist mentality of the Donald Trump would be like, okay, let's get the hell out of these places and bring people home.
And I agree with that. I agree that we should not be the policemen of the world. So you're absolutely right on there. Do I believe in complete non-intervention completely? No, because I think that there's bad elements around the globe that we have to keep an eye on. But as far as going into a country and remaking it like we did in Iraq and elsewhere, no, I would agree with you. We don't have to do that. And I don't think that it's Americans' bombs and things like that are radicalizing them. I think it's their religion, and I think that they've been radicalized since the 7th century. I don't think any intervention with the United States of America is going to make much of a difference in how their political and ideological.
Well, why don't we try it the other way then? Why don't we try to pull out of these countries? Why don't we stop bombing them? Because it's the globalist mentality about going over into these countries, performing resource extraction, taking their resources, in propping up these puppet governments, which is the most craziest form of radicalizations. If you bomb somebody's family, of course they're going to come after you. You know what I'm saying? Or want to come after us. And that's something that we haven't really even looked into and said, hey, we have to reflect on ourselves. Josh, we have a military budget, okay, of $750 billion. That means American bombs, American sanctions. That's the number one form of radicalizations. You know what I'm saying? That's why I hope that the nationalist mentality would be, hey, let's get out of there. We're not being the policemen of the world. We're using these excuses. Oh, they've been fighting each other for years. We're not. We got to go in there. We got to do this. We want their resources. We want them to use the monetary system that we have put in place. It's American imperialism that has radicalized so many different people. So we can't just kind of
like. See, that's where I'm going to disagree. Yeah. Look, America, as the great Barry Farber, who I was extremely close to, America has done more for the goodness of the people around the world with as much power as they have without doing evil. Okay.
No way.
And I believe that we are the superior country, and it is American superiority that is going to keep the world from falling into 3,000 years of darkness. So I do disagree with you there wholeheartedly.
Yeah. I disagree with you there too as well. I don't think we are the beacon of shining light, and I think that's where a lot of
if America's not the biggest, baddest planet on Earth, country on Earth, then who's going to fill that gap? China? We're going to let the communist Chinese fill that gap, and they're going to be number one? Really?
Fill
the ones
what
that
gap?
have a million Uyghurs
When's
right
the last
now
time
in
China?
concentration
When's the
camps?
last time China went into and bombed the country and did something that we did like last week?
What about the fact that China is trying to take over the United States of America and the rest of the world by releasing
when's the last time? Let's digress. Let's talk about China since we're here. When's the last time China has done something similar to what we do on a regular basis where our foreign policy, when they've bombed the country, when they've gone into a country, when they've done something in an imperialistic, militaristic way? You tell me.
I will tell you. They did it when they released this bioterrorism weapon to kill off America and the rest of the world.
Oh, really? So now with the new emails coming out there and everything with Dr. Fauci and it's American funded, a $3.7 million grant from American.
I call him Dr. Falsey, the satanic garden gnome.
Okay,
on my show.
So you don't have evidence. All right, besides the bioweapon.
The American Communist Movement in America, in tune with the CCP, absolutely were in lockstep to destroy America and to take out Donald Trump. And they used this bioterrorism weapon from China. And if you don't think that China wants to get into our power grid and now they control Beijing, Biden, the puppet in our White House, Xi Jinping, Chairman Xi is the president of the United States right now, just so you understand that.
Josh, okay? I disagree, but I want you to point out the last time China showed a militaristic kind of mentality with dropping bombs. Let's keep the COVID off to the side for a second because we're going to disagree. And what you're saying right now, there's not a lot of proof of that right now. I know a lot more communists out here than you do. I'm pretty sure of that. And I can tell you they're not lock, stock, and barrel with the CCP. I'm a leftist over here, right? You know what I'm saying? So please, tell me right now, when was the last time China has used that mentality? Because I want to just get back to what what the United States is doing.
Region. Okay, first and foremost, let's talk about them taking over the South China Sea and
the South what? The South what sea?
The military islands in the South China Sea.
So China taking over the South China Sea. Okay, please elaborate.
The South China Sea. It's the more than 1/3 of all trade goes through those waters. Okay, it's like I forget what it is. It's like $3 trillion worth of trade goes through those waters. It's the most important trade waterway in the entire world, and they built up military islands all around it because they want to take over that area. Let's talk about what they just did with Hong Kong. Let's talk about what they just did with Taiwan. Okay, taking over their governments. Okay, so you're saying that there's no act of aggression here. Absolutely, there is an act of aggression. What they did in 2020 against the United States was an absolute act of aggression, and we've got to fight back against them. My ringtone on my phone literally is "Let's take down the CCP." Okay, I am about as anti-CCP as it possibly gets. Maybe, just maybe, Steve Bannon is a little bit more, to the right of me when it comes to China, but probably not. I absolutely detest the Chinese Communist Party. I want to see them obliterated from the face of the earth, and I'll have no problem saying it.
Okay, so we're going to disagree on that too as well. And it was very interesting. You talked about the South China Sea. You talked about Hong Kong, which is part of China. Taiwan, which is part of China. The only reason why these ports were given up by the Brits when they were colonized years ago during the Opium Wars. And that's why they're there now. But once again, we don't know a lot of aggression of China going around the globe like we do. You know what I'm saying? Setting up military bases. What do we have? Over 700 military bases around the world. And I just want to kind of digress back to that part about what America's responsibilities are. And this is where we disagree. I don't think we should be going around, and I hoped we had a nationalist mentality. We reeled back, closed our bases, and came back home. If you want to call that nationalism, I want to call it demilitarizing the planet. But this is where we disagree. And once again, it's very hard for you guys to push your theory who are anti-CCP because there's not a lot of aggression from the Chinese Communist Party or China as a whole doing stuff in a militaristic way that we do it. You know what I'm saying? And that's again, just the plain bottom crux of things. I don't think that China is as perfect as a lot of people say they are. There's certainly a lot of things to look at, but they're doing things financially, going around financially. And let's be honest.
Financially is also building up their military. And this brings me to another topic. We should be fining Walmart, Target, Dollar Store, any of these stores that carry and sell products that are made in China that they're selling for less money than, driving mom and pop stores out of business because of China Mart and Target and everything else. They should pay heavy fines and sanctions for selling Chinese made products, because every single time you walk into one of those stores and you buy something cheaper than you can get it somewhere else, you are adding another bomb, another bullet, another tank, another missile, another, military weapon to China's military, which eventually will be used, if we're not careful, to defeat us. Okay. Have you ever heard of the Belt and Road Initiative?
I know very well about the Belt and Road Initiative, my friend.
Is something that came about in China, I believe in 2014. And what they have done is they've spent close to $8 trillion. That's right. With a capital T, $8 trillion, basically doing what's known as debt trap diplomacy, in which they go into some third world S-hole country, whatever that country may be. And they say, look, we're going to build you hospitals. We're going to build you roads. We're going to build you tunnels. We're going to build you, schools, whatever it may be. And we want you to sign this understanding of, operandum, or whatever you want to call it, memorandum of understanding. And then they know that these countries cannot afford to pay back these debts. So what do? They come in and they take over their governments, and they take over their countries. You don't even need to call Ethiopia anymore. You might as well just call it China-Ethiopia, because it is a Chinese-run government and country. Now they have done this. Hang on. They have.
We just had a guest on from Ethiopia.
38 countries around the world.
No, because they built the dam, because they spent $600 to half the money on putting up that dam. But listen to what you said, Josh, and this is something we have to talk about, because that's what's, I think, this country is so divided on what we need to do and stuff like that. And I see the Democrats blaming Russia for everything, and I see the Republicans blaming China for everything. We need to blame ourselves, because you hit it on the nose with the number one problem. Is you talk about Target, Walmart, whatnot.
Yep.
The problem with NAFTA is that American globalists didn't give a shit to send all our labor over to China and Indochina, because we were using almost slave wages over there. Okay, and then we crushed our own economy over here. So China didn't do a goddamn thing. It was the globalists here in this country, the NAFTA goons, like Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton, all of them. So we have to reverse that and change that. But how do you win people over? How do you win these countries over? We're going to help you. We're going to give you money so you can build schools, hospitals, roads. All these countries once pretty much have been suppressed by American imperialism, by our way, by pushing the IMF on these countries, by dropping bombs, by supporting puppet governments that will do our bidding and our work for us. Do you know we fund the CIA and the Pentagon? Funds the worst of the worst. You know what I'm saying? The Mujahideen was created because of us.
All over the place.
Yes.
I've said this many
so we
times
have to
before.
look at our own actions. We got to stop pointing the finger at China.
Our intelligence agencies are enemies of the state. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They are enemies of the state. We should disband the FBI, the CIA, all of them. The NSA. These are enemies of freedom. They are enemies of the United States of America. There's no question in my mind. Now, the grunts on the ground, the people that are doing their best to try to keep America safe, yeah, I don't count them. I'm talking about the seventh floor. I'm talking about the scumbags like James Edgar Comey and the rest of the idiots that did what they did in the deep state. I'm talking about those folks. I'm not talking about, the soldiers and the people on the ground that are doing God's work and trying to keep America safe. But I'm talking about the leadership of these things. And now look at this administration. My God, this fraudulent administration. You've got these animals, and I'll call them what they are. Merrick Garland, who couldn't get on the Supreme Court, thank God. And now we have this Lloyd Austin idiot. I mean, these people are dangerous. Look what they're doing to the people from January 6th. Meanwhile, Portland's been blown up every single night of every single week, all summer long, right? The summer of love, as they called it. But yet all those people are not in jail. No, why? Because George Soros owns two things. He owns the attorney generals and he owns the secretaries of state. How do you steal election? You put a bought and paid for secretary of state in each state in the swing states. And how do you get people that can cause damage and mayhem and violence and death and murder and not have them be in jail? You own the attorney generals. It's very simple.
Yep. Well,
and that's coming from a Jew. I absolutely detest George Soros. I think he's the most evil son of a bitch on the face of the planet.
Well, I mean, I don't like these people, at all. I've looked at a lot of these people. I think they are part of the problem, whatnot and stuff. But I mean, I think we disagree on a lot of things. And one of the things I'll probably disagree with you is that what Trump's role had to play in this whole situation. You know what I'm saying? I can't understand.
I don't think Trump did anything wrong, to be quite honest.
Well, all right. Well, let's talk. Let's start with the biggest thing he did wrong.
Everybody go down to the Capitol peacefully. Those were his exact words.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about January 6th. I'm talking about the macro and stuff like that. Let's just go right to it and stuff since we've already had a 50-minute show and we're going long in here. Why didn't he pardon Julian Assange?
He should have.
Why didn't he?
I'm agreeing with you. He should have. I mean, if you think about it, Julian Assange was one of the people that helped him win the election because he's the one that uncovered all the stuff that happened to Bernie Sanders, with Hillary Clinton. And not just that, all of Hillary Clinton's, her emails, everything else that came out, that was Julian Assange. Okay. And quite frankly, also, I would say InfoWars, say what you will about Alex Jones. He had 40% of the audience in 2016. He blew away Fox, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, all of them combined didn't have the views that Alex Jones have. Now, I'm not saying that I'm 100% in agreement with everything that he's ever said and done. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, as someone in the news, he really had a captive audience in 2016. So it was those emails that were released that literally showed what they did to Bernie Sanders, not once, but now twice, right? Of course, in 2020 as well. And bottom line is, if it wasn't for Julian Assange dropping WikiLeaks Vault 7 and all those other vaults of emails, we wouldn't have known most of the things that have happened. So I agree with you 100%. Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you pardon Julian Assange? Terrible mistake. Okay. I think he should have been pardoned.
Okay. That's why I'm really questioning what Trump's part is in this whole situation. And I don't know why if he was for real, why he wouldn't go start another party. Why? I mean, you just said earlier.
That too. That's another thing. Why? After what the Republicans did to America and what they did to President Trump, all he had to do on a few days afterwards, he could have said, you know what? I'm done with the Republican Party. We're going to bury the Republican Party the way of the Whigs. And people would say, Josh, you're crazy. You're going to split the vote. Split what vote? There's nothing to split. You know how many people absolutely will not vote for Republicans anymore? And until, of course, Trump decided not to do, the Patriot Party, which I was pushing. I did show after show after show for him to do that. And not only do that, but open up Trump television, open up Trump social media, and then start doing rallies around the country again. Get yourself back out there and create the shadow government that Obama did to you for 4 years. You do that to this fraudulent administration. That's how you get to the people. That's how you make sure that you disrupt, discombobulate, and crush this fraudulent administration from being able to enact any of their left-wing radical Marxist legislation. I was saying that to Mike Lindell when I had him on my show a few weeks ago. Tell President Trump to do this. But for whatever reason, I don't know why. Maybe he's afraid of, McCarthy, or maybe he's afraid of the Kentucky Fried Chicken, Mitch McConnell. I don't know. Maybe he just is afraid of the establishment. Somehow, maybe they told him don't do it, and he just listened. And that's stupid. He should have buried and punished the Republican Party. Think about it. 80 million plus people voted for Trump, if not more than that. He could have said on a Tuesday, I've just launched the Patriot Party. or the MAGA Party, whatever the hell you want to call it. I would call it the Patriot Party because that brings over disaffected Democrats and independents as well. But I just started the Patriot Party. Here's what I want you to do. In the next 72 hours, I want you to quit the Republican Party, and I want you to join my new party. I guarantee you 45 to 50 million people would have joined just like that almost overnight.
Yep.
You would have had the Republican Party buried, and the Democrats would have never been able to compete with a Patriot Party.
Well, that's what you just said. Those two things right there make me think that maybe it's a big part of a bigger scheme to keep us all divided, to keep the Republican Party against the Democratic Party. The way the Democratic Party has tried to shepherd a lot of progressives in there. I think people got to be cautious about what Trump's doing right now and those lack of moves. Because once again, I'll say this right now: I would never vote for Donald Trump. I'm not crazy about him. If I had a gun to my head and it had to be Joe Biden or Donald Trump, put the gun down, I'd vote for Donald Trump. A gun to my head, because that's how much I despise the Democratic Party, because they are not leftists at all. And it's funny because I want to get you back. We'll talk about, and I know it will be a heated debate. We got to talk about communism, socialism, because to me, communism is community. It's a lot of things I've seen out of a lot of patriots out there who are talking about, oh, if shit goes down, we got to be able to take care of ourselves. We have to participate in mutual aid. So that's something to think about. But I just want to end on this one.
As much as I would love to do that, I have a 1:15 radio interview.
Oh, I know. Sure. I got to let you go. I have one last question.
I would love to continue. Don't think I don't, because I would
No. We talked about an hour. You got a 1:15 interview, and I think we'll have a lot of conversations off the air, because I know a lot of people are going to say, wow, holy shit, the Convo Couch just had this guy on. He's way, way out there and stuff. And I believe we talk to everybody and anybody. You know what I'm saying? We have a lot of differences.
I'm very calm, cool, calculated, reserved.
Oh, I know you are.
Articulate. I'm intellectual.
Yeah.
And I just call it like I see it. And that's why, the people love to watch my show, because they're going to get no BS. They're not going to get any fluff. They're going to get the story. And I always say, the Josh Bernstein show starts where the rest of the media ends. That's kind of my tagline. Now, why do I say that? Well, number one, because I'm a big fan of Paul Harvey, and I can't say now that's the rest of the story. So I'll be honest. I did kind of borrow that from him. But the bottom line is I go deep into a story. I don't just, shoot on the surface. I go deep into a story. And that's what I've been doing for many, many years. And I think people like that. They like the fact that they're going to get something that's not a conservative news echo chamber, that's going to be critical of Republicans as Democrats and everybody else in between. I call them like I see them, and I have no problem with that. And I think that that's why people like it. So, folks, go to joshbernsteinuncensored.com. If it's banned on social media, you'll find it there.
Yep. Well, that's Josh Bernstein, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. And Josh, I just think that, when it comes to covering stories, talking about stories, sometimes we have to accept the fact that it's our motivation of how we feel sometimes, which kind of sets us on a journey to go out and find the truth, and we'll look at things differently. So when we do get in a room, guys like me and you, we can learn from each other because we think so differently about a lot of things. And maybe that will tilt that journey to look at other people's perspective who might not just agree with us, and then we can come to common ground on things and not yell and scream at each other, but instead just agree to disagree. Thank you so much for joining us today,
Absolutely.
Josh. I look forward to having you on again, and we can go back and forth and talk about the things we disagree about. Good luck, my friend.
Send me a copy, and I'll put it up this weekend on the website.
You got it, Josh Bernstein.
All right, God bless.
Josh Bernstein from Arizona. Let us know what's going on with that delegation as they come through over there, Josh. Very interested.
Let Arizona be the first domino to fall.
Yeah. See, you think it's about maybe possibly bringing Trump back. Me, I think it's about putting in the rules for the future that we both
just
agree.
Remember, you can't, if you have enough of these audits, and I've been talking about this for a while, the last thing I'm going to say, there's 3,143 counties in the United States of America. That means there's 3,143 opportunities to get forensic audits done anywhere around the country. Could you imagine if just 10 or 12 or 15 counties around the United States started doing forensic audits? We would then be able to decertify this election. We would then be able to file a writ of quo warranto, which is a legal procedure used to take someone out of office that's been put there fraudulently. So there is a remedy, and there are ways to do this. We just have to have the political willpower to be able to do it.
Well, good luck for that, because I know you're going to hear the thing saying not on standing is what the judges will say, and the process would take too long. I think by the time we get to that point, the 4 years will be come and gone. But hopefully we'll change our elections for the future.
I will never stop fighting to overturn this election. I will never comply. I will never retreat. I will never surrender.
Well, good luck, my friend, on that. I'm looking forward to getting the rules changed, to changing our elections,
we can
making
do that
them more
too,
transparent.
but we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Remember that.
Good luck, my friend. You got it, Josh.
Take care.
That's Josh Bernstein, everybody. Oh, man, we agree to disagree. I had to bring him on. We had to talk because I'm not going to back down. I've had these debates and arguments in Georgia or Arizona, whatnot, and stuff, and I'm going to bring him to the table. There were a lot of things I disagree with that guy, and it's very easy to say, I'm not going to talk to him, the hell with him, but he has a ton of followers, so there's a lot of people who are plugged into what he's saying. So I just wanted to combat some of the things there in a respectful manner, which we can do it responsibly without hating each other, even though he does, push the boundaries pretty far on a lot of things. So apologize to my audience if he said anything that offended you. Hopefully they didn't, but that's, his thoughts, not mine. And anyways, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be waiting on for Fiorella to see what she's doing in Peru. We'll give you updates as soon as we can. I'm going to be on Frank Analysis tonight at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern. Thank you so much for joining us. For Pasta Jardula, Jonny Tsunami on the ones and twos, Convo out. We'll speak to you later.